Hi, it's Jan Beta, and I do have a problem with not being able to pass on things that I find on the side of the road that are interesting. And I found this 1970s radio receiver recently, which is a dual CT-110. I found this next to where I live on the side of the road. Got a bit wet because it rained that day, but it seems to be in excellent condition. We're going to take a look at this and see if we can make it work. If it doesn't, maybe it does work still. So this is a dual CT-110, as I said, dual being a German brand that famously made record players and things like that, which are really highly regarded. Their other hi-fi equipment is not that highly regarded, but it still has a nice 70s design, this thing, and I think their radio receivers are pretty good. Dual is mostly known for their excellent turntables. German brand. This particular unit was produced from 1976 to 1978, so it is around 45, 46 years old at least, and probably there's some problems with this. It seems to be in really nice condition from the outside. The dial still works. It still has a mains cable on it, which is a nice touch. A nice fake wood grain. This is plastic stuck on here, walnut looking, but it is real wood under there, but it's just, I think, plywood or something like that. Some of these switches are latching, some aren't. I'm not sure if that's on purpose. Maybe there's something broken mechanically. This has automatic frequency control, it seems, FM band, shortwave, medium wave, long wave, which is pretty cool because usually you only have FM these days. Of course, this is kind of obsolete these days, or it's becoming obsolete pretty soon probably because everything is switching to digital. We still have FM broadcasts here in Germany, but who knows how long that is going to last. I think it is really reasonable to have something as simple as FM radio broadcast still in service in case of emergencies and things like that. You can easily build a radio receiver for FM in case of apocalypse or something like that. Yeah, that's just my point of view. We shouldn't switch everything to digital, in my opinion. But yeah. We're going to take a look at this, take it apart, and I'm going to see if there's anything to fix or if it's a lost cause. And maybe we are all going to learn something. I'm not an expert on radio stuff at all, but I'm very curious. And this was free, sitting on the side of the road in the rain. So I'm pretty glad I saved this. It's a beautiful device and worth not being discarded. So this is the back of the unit. I think this is the long wave antenna. It's missing some tape here. I think there were stickers on here. But yeah, this seems to be in good condition. It has connectors for old school antennas with 2 prongs here for FM and AM. And the output is actually a DIN socket here, which was standard at the time in the 70s, in Germany at least. I think elsewhere they already had the RCA plugs, especially in America where those came from. But this only has a DIN socket here for output, so we're going to have to find an adapter for that or build one to be able to see if this works. Unit seems to be set up for 220 volts. I think internally you can probably set it up to other voltages, which I'm going to look into. And the 70s, of course, were the days when stuff was still made in Germany, actually. Dual type CT-110. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, your one-stop solution for all things that involve PCBs, CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding. They can do everything the tinkerer needs, basically. Their pricing is super reasonable, delivery is fast, their service is excellent. I highly recommend checking out the link in the video description. Back to our tuner. So, of course, we're going to try to take a look inside. And yeah, the chassis is a whole box. There's no bottom plate you can take off. This is all, I think, glued and stapled together, the whole wood here. And I think we have to remove these screws here, which are just regular slot screws here, to get into this unit. So let's do that. It also says, vor dem Lösen der Befestigungsschrauben Netzstecker ziehen, which means, before loosening mounting screws, disconnect power supply. Yep, we did that. We didn't even connect it yet. And then we should be able to pull this out like a drawer. We're going to explore this together, shall we? So we should, in theory, be able to pull the whole unit out. Yes, we are, I think. Let's see. Wow, and it looks very, very clean from the inside. And it's really cheap wood. But has nice wood grain, fake wood grain on it. And as you can see, this is only half filled, basically. There's our transformer. Mains voltage goes in here through this little board, which has a RIFA capacitor on it. I can already see that. We should definitely remove that. And indeed, you can switch these to different voltages. 220, 240 volts, 150 volts, 110 and 130 volts. And then there's 2 fuses, I think, which you can put in for different positions. So we should put this fuse in this position for 240 volts because they changed the mains voltage from 220 to 230, I believe, and sometimes it's a bit higher. And then this board here is the whole radio receiving unit and things like that. The rest is the dial and dial lights and things like that. That's going to be interesting to see if those still work. Yeah, and there's one IC in here. Don't think it has anything to do with the radio reception. That's all analog stuff here, I guess. Filters, and there's a couple of capacitors. Made in Germany even. So we have this TBA 450 chip here. And I think that's one problem that these have. If this chip fails, I think it's just an amplifier chip. You can't really get any pin out for this. And I think I already see the reason why this was discarded. I think down here, this is the RIFA capacitor I was speaking of. These are X-type capacitors. That means they are wired across the live and neutral wire to filter the mains input, basically, at least at that time. Nowadays they are mostly used to filter the output from the devices so that the mains don't get polluted by high frequency ripple and stuff like that, I think. And this one is burst. And these have the tendency to do that after some time, these RIFA capacitors. So if you find one of these in any of your devices, you're probably going to see some cracks developing in the casing and things like that. These can be removed usually without affecting the device too much. They're just the mains filter capacitor basically at the very input. So you can run devices without these or replace them with some modern X-type capacitor, which is probably what I'm going to do. We have to remove this because it's completely burst, and I think as these give up some black smoke and some very stinky smell in case they burst. I've witnessed that a couple of times now during my repair work. Probably the person who owned this previously witnessed that and just discarded the unit, although it's maybe just this one capacitor that doesn't work anymore. I'm going to check if the fuse is still good and replace this RIFA with something modern. I'm going to just remove it for now, I think, and then maybe see if I have something in my parts bin that fits the bill there. Let's check some fuses. There's another one there. It might be that the capacitor is completely shorted, so we are going to see. That is definitely burst. Let's see if the fuses are still good. Nope, this one is burst as well. Probably because of that RIFA capacitor, because this is the mains fuse. So we're going to have to figure out what fuse type that is. T0.315 amps. So 315 milliamps. I should have one of those in my parts bin, but we are going to have to remove that capacitor, that RIFA. And this whole board, you can reach some of the components from the bottom, but I'm going to bend this little tab that holds it in, and then we can probably just slide it out. The noise is my desoldering station in the background, I'm sorry. So, bending this. And this has, it seems it has never been worked on here. So this should just come out. Yeah, and then we can reach our broken, very badly broken, you can see on the side here. It's very compromised. So we are going to remove that, and it should just be across the mains. Yeah, seems like it. Yeah, okay, this is very badly burned. Yeah, this suffered from a rapid unplanned disassembly. And these things give up really badly stinking smoke, as I said. This is a 0.047 microfarad X rated capacitor. This one is definitely gone, and so is the fuse. And the fuse might just be gone because this is gone. And I found these 0.315 amp MEFA Feinsicherungen in my parts bin, which are probably around the same vintage as the ones that were in here originally. So these should be the exact same stuff that belongs in here. You always want to replace these with the exact same type, of course, because otherwise you risk damaging your devices. I think what I want to do is also to look for a replacement X-type capacitor there. Yeah, and I actually have in my parts bin these here, which are WEMA brand, which is better known these days than RIFA, I think. These are the exact same rating as the original one and the exact same package even, I believe. I don't know if these are going to break as quickly as these. This probably lasted for a couple of decades. I think these are a good replacement. I don't have anything with the same values. This is going to do at least for a while for trying this. I'm going to put one of these in just to see. No idea what I bought these for. I usually would use something more modern like a polyester cap or something. Something like this. I have a couple of these. These are also X capacitors that you find in more modern equipment. But we're going to make do with this because it's accurate. Really funny that I have these. I don't know what I bought these for, as I said. Going to solder that in. And of course we're going to have to put a new fuse in. But I think we can put the board back at this point. Should be fine. And the fuse, I'm going to put that into the position where it says 240 volts, because if I understand this correctly, that should be switching the whole unit to 240 volts input. Which we want. This is now rated a bit higher than what the actual mains voltage here is. But usually the mains voltage fluctuates quite a bit between 230 and 240 or thereabouts, so this is definitely the safer option. So the power section should be alright. I'm not too sure about the power switch, which should be latching, I guess. But I'm going to try to give this some juice through this dim bulb tester, which is basically just a light bulb, incandescent light bulb, wired in series with the mains, so the current gets limited in case something is shorting out in the device and the light bulb is going to be very bright. And if everything is okay, the light bulb is going to light up, but not too brightly. This is a 60 watt light bulb. Usually I use this to test like smaller amplifiers and things like that. I'm not sure if this is going to let enough current through for this thing to power up, but we're going to try. And in case something blows up, it's not going to blow up as badly with this thing in series here. So yeah, we're going to see. This is like a shot in the dark. Tested some of the diodes and things on the board, and at least the rectifier diodes should be alright. And our fuse should be in the correct position. Our RIFA is replaced. So let's see what it does. I sure hope it doesn't blow up again. So the mains cable, you always want to check these old cables for breaks, cracks in the installation. This is a very flimsy cable, but it seems alright. So I'm going to plug in my dim bulb tester here. Okay, here goes nothing. Plugging in, first time in 40 years. Bulb is staying silent. Let's see if our power button does something. Yeah, and as I said, this should be latching, but if I hold it down, we even get our scale lights to light up and nothing explodes. But our power button, it's supposed to be latching. I think that's a broken switch in some way, but we don't get anything lighting on fire yet. These lights here don't light up, but our scale seems to be pretty much fully lit. I don't know if you can see that on camera. The only problem at this point is our power switch that prevents this from staying powered on. That's not so great, but maybe there's a workaround for that. Pretty surprised that the scale lights, which are of course incandescent light bulbs, like screw-in light bulbs in this case, I believe, as far as I can see. Pretty amazed that that still works. So I think what I'm going to do is to plug this straight into the mains. And I think, unfortunately, the really broken thing on this is that some of these switches no longer latch. Our FM switch, which is the most important one except for the power switch, both of these should stay down basically, and they don't. Yeah, but it is promising. We get lights. Nothing blew up. Let's try with the full amount of juice, I guess. Okay, full steam ahead. Let's plug this into the actual mains without the dim bulb tester and see if it blows up now. No, it doesn't. So let's see if we get some sound. I'm going to have to look for an adapter. I think I have some DIN adapters that we might be able to use. Let's see. I couldn't find my DIN adapters. I'm sure I have some somewhere for like old record players and things like that. But just using these alligator clips or crocodile clips and connected my little speaker here, which is of course not the best way to do it, but you can clearly see the output here. The unshielded wire is the ground, and then there's two wires for each channel. So 2 wires, one is left and one is right channel. And I just clipped into the DIN socket from the backside here. And as you can see, there's cutouts in the case here probably for RCA jacks. So this was probably used in different regions with different plug combinations. Yeah, long story short, I'm just going to power this on and see if we get any sound out of this, which of course would be sweet. Yay, we get crackle. Let's see if we have any reception here on the FM band. Yeah. Yeah, it works, and the output signal seems to be good enough. We have radio, we have FM reception. The other bands are empty at this point, so no point in checking those, and no way of checking those with the equipment I have. I'm not really set up for fine-tuning radio reception. But yeah, this is really promising. The only thing that worries me at this point is that the switches are not latching. So probably we should look into that. So it's a couple of days later, and I read up on the non-latching switch problem that we have with this one, which is actually the only problem that I can find with this. And unfortunately, these switches are not easily fixed or replaced. They are so old that there are no longer reasonable spare parts for these, so no way to replace these. And the switches themselves work, so I think what I'm going to do is to find a workaround to permanently switch them on. So at least we're going to end up with a tuner that's permanently working when you plug it in. Not the best workaround, but it's not really worth putting more effort into this thing because, as I said, it's a bit obsolete at this point. Let's take a look at these switches. So here's one of these switches that doesn't latch anymore. This is our power switch, which has the actual switch in the back here, this black thing. But these regular switches that also should latch, they have this grabber here that should grab a little piece of plastic that's inside this plastic housing here, which usually breaks off on these, as I've read. So that seems to be the case here. They also have a latch on the side here, and some of these are missing. And the latching is actually done in this plastic thing here. So there's multiple layers of latching that are all broken on these. So no reasonable way to fix these. I could desolder them and take them apart and look inside and see what I can do, but I don't think it's worth it for a device like this, unfortunately. And there's always the risk of messing these up completely, especially with my lack of mechanical skills. But I think what I can do, not sure if you can see that, let me change the angle slightly. There are these things here, like a little hook. I'm not sure if it's really visible on camera. There's a little hook that comes up as soon as you actuate these. This is actually one that's intact. But you could, in theory, just put something like a cable tie in here and latch the switch permanently, basically. I think that's the easiest workaround for this that I can find. These are also ganged up, the ones for the frequency band selection, but the one for the FM band, which is the only one that has any radio stations on it, that's not latching anymore. So that's the important one that we really want to latch. Yeah, these are ganged up by a little rod in the bottom there that disengages the other switches once you press one of the other frequency band switches. But we don't really need these. So the only things we really need to be on permanently is the on-off switch here and the FM band switch. And of course, if you know of a way to fix this, let me know in the comments. I didn't find anything online, and I'm not going to desolder these switches because it's a pain in the butt. And also we would have to remove the whole thing here on top to get to them and restring the dial string, which I'm not going to attempt. I'm going to pull the knob here and see if I can get this thing off, but I think, not sure how this is supposed to work. Slotted screw like everything else on this thing. There we go. And this is just a plain rod here. Just going to use a microfiber cloth and some window cleaner here. Which should make this somewhat shine again. Yeah, the dirt is coming off quite well here. And I'm going to do the same with the wood parts and the fake wood grain. There are some dents in this and things like that I'm not going to be able to polish out. It's a nice looking unit. These just plug in, as I said, and are held with the casing. Tuning knob. I'm just going to put this back. We could use some lubrication on the wheel here. I'm just going to clean off the old lubricant that's on there. So this whole string mechanism is super intricate on this one. The string actually goes through these black wheels that you can see in the corner there. These wheels here, and there's a pulley that actually sets the frequency in this adjustable capacitor thing, and of course it travels all the way around these here. So yeah, and this is just a weight basically to make it a bit, give the knob a bit more heft. That's pretty common. So I'm going to lubricate these pulleys here a bit and the whole thing, and it should run smoother. Going to use silicone grease there, a tiny amount of that. Yeah, it does feel quite a bit better now. That's pretty much all I want to do to that. Let's see about our switches, if we can permanently fix them. So this is not going to be easy to get into there. I think I'm just going to pull this one up with a cable tie around here, probably. Yeah, not sure if this is going to fly. Could, of course, electrically short the switch here with a wire, but I kind of want to do this as non-permanent as I can. I have some different width of cable ties here, but I'm not sure one of those fits. So it's not so easy to jam something in from the inside, and it's also not accessible once you have the casing closed. So I thought it would be better to jam something in on the front here, and I'm using these rubber gaskets here that I had in my parts bin, which kind of fit these switches, and they are at least black, so they are not super visible. Yeah. This is not the best solution. I can probably find something better. But yeah, this is way easier. Just to hold these keys, piano key style switches down on the front here. Not looking great, but it's going to work. And we don't have to do any modifications on the inside. Not really happy with this, but probably all I can do at this point. These hooks, they are too tiny and there's not a lot of room between the tuning wheel and this. It's not easy to jam something in there that holds it down all the way. This works much more reliably. Doesn't look as nice, but as I said, you could find something, or you could cut these in half or something and still have this work. Not an ideal solution, but as I said, these switches are unobtainium basically. So this is the best I can come up with at this point without putting too much work into this not very useful device. Yeah, it's a workaround. And now, of course, we would have to use a switched outlet or something like that. As you can see, it switches on. And the other switches, the automatic frequency control, you could put another one of these gaskets in there if you wanted that. But the other switches latch still. We don't need these anyway because these frequency bands are no longer used. This is a mono switch that switches the output to mono. Like this, you can at least dial in the station you like, connect this to an amplifier, and hear some radio. I am, however, going to replace the electrolytic capacitors. There's one here, and there's two actual ones here. I think this one is also an electrolytic capacitor. I'm going to have to look that up in the service manual, which is still available on the Dual website, actually. Which is pretty amazing after all those years. It's a scanned PDF, but it is there. I'm going to link that in the video description. Kind of amazing that they put that up after 46, 47 years, 48 years maybe even. Not sure, there's no date code that I can find in here. So here's the service manual, which is super concise, and indeed C504, which is the plastic package, is a 100 microfarad 16 volt elute condensator electrolytic capacitor. This is all in German, of course, because it's a German product. So yeah, this is really concise. We find this about how the switches are put together. This is the construction for the on-off switch. There's the actual switch that I pointed out, and all of these have these switches. This is not wired up for the power switch. It's just used as a latch. And there's this little thing that latches and this clamp mechanism that latches. And then there's an intricate construction with these buttons and some springs. And I'm not going to take this apart because I'm pretty sure I would mess it up even more. At least the switching still works. We just need to hold this thing down. The power supply that we changed is wired correctly according to this for 240 volts. This is where we put our fuse. That's exactly how this is meant to be wired for 240 volts. This wire here changes between 110, 150 and 220 or 240, and then you change the fuses here for the according voltage you want to set this up for. That's what we did. And I don't have the equipment to set this up frequency-wise, but at least we can change the electrolytic capacitors, which do age and I'm going to put the same capacitance microfarad values in there and the same or higher voltage ratings. And as this is a 70s product, it's super easy to access the circuit board from both sides without taking the whole thing apart. These were actually made to be serviceable back in those days. And I think I have all the values that we need. I even have a lot of actual capacitors. These are all standard values, and you could probably fit a radial capacitor in there. So it turns out I don't have a 2200 microfarad 40 volts capacitor. I don't have a radial or an actual cap for 2200. That's high enough voltage. And these are probably still good. Now this one has a ceramic capacitor attached to it, which doesn't make it easier. Yeah, and that's soldered in with the old solder. So there we go. That should be all the capacitors I have in my parts bin. This one here had a ceramic capacitor soldered on the back side, which I soldered onto that just as it was. So this, in theory, should still work. We're going to check that and then put it back together. That's about all I can do to this. Replacing the lamps involves getting this whole construction off, which also involves restringing the tuning mechanism, which I'm not going to do, as I said. So let's see if this still works at all and if we get reception. This is of course without an antenna. Usually reception is super good with these older receivers. And hey, our signal strength is also working, the meter. I think I'm satisfied with that result for what it is. That's where we are, and I think that's where we are going to stay with this one. Because, yeah, these are, as I said repeatedly, a bit obsolete at this point. Still a beautiful device, but not really of much use to me because I have receivers and I don't need an extra tuner. Maybe if somebody wants this, we can figure something out. Just contact me. So this is what the case looks like, and as you can see, the plastic fake wood grain has shrunk a bit. That means it's coming off on the backside here, just flapping. Not much I can do about this. I could try to iron it out, but I don't think I want to bother because it just pulled itself over the edge there. And I don't think the glue is still sticking. I'm just going to give this a clean and then put it back together. I think that's the reasonable thing to do. One funny aside, these are actually rubber feet that are meant to protrude over this plastic, and they are shrunk so much that they are sticking out a tiny little bit, but I think this was meant to be a bit further. Probably it would be a good idea to add some new feet to this if I was to use this, which I'm not going to be. I'm going to put this in there. The cable. Oh, the cable needs some cleaning, but we can do that afterwards. And we need to put the side panels back on, of course. There we go. But that's probably as good as I'm going to get this. And there you go. Switchable with the mains plug. Or by removing this rubber grommet here. yeah, that's probably all I want to do to this thing at this point, and all I can do really, because these switches, as I said, they are unobtainium these days. If you have any source of these or know how to fix them, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm going to take another look at this. But as I said, it's pretty much useless to me. If you are a dual collector and want one of these, be it just for the front plate, which is in pretty immaculate shape, or the buttons, the physical, mechanical buttons here, the switches inside are broken, as I said. But yeah, if you have any use for this, for spare parts or anything like that, it's not worth much. Just contact me and we're going to figure something out, and I'm going to ship this to you. That's it for today. Hope this was informative and maybe a bit entertaining. Thank you very much for your likes, your comments, your subscriptions. Please spread the word. Special thanks, as always, to the people who support me on Patreon or on the YouTube community memberships page, and on Ko-fi and elsewhere. The links to that are in the video description. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.